Welcome to the Bill Cartwright Show with our special guest, USF coach, assistant coach, Jay Duncan. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you are now officially a Don, so we got to get you going the right way. This is what I like to do. I'd like to have everybody get to know you really quickly.
Okay.
So can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up? And I want you to talk a little bit about mom and dad.
Okay. Yeah. So I am a dual citizen from Australia and America. I have both citizenships. Long time ago, I guess, and now it feels that way with a wife and kids. But I was born in Western Australia. My mother still lives there. I grew up there the early years of my life. Moved to the States when I was maybe 14, 15, and have lived here ever since. But my mother, she's an angel. She put up with me and my younger brother. She still lives there in Perth, Australia. I'm trying to get her to come over to the States more often, but she will come over for a few games this season, which will be fun. Didn't have a lot to do with my dad. They split when I was really young, and yeah, never had a whole lot to do with him. But yeah, my mother filled the shoes for everybody and did a great job, in that role.
Now, I want you to talk about yourself about when you grew up, like as a high school kid. What kind of kid were you? Were you a sports kid? Were you a artsy kid?
Yeah,
What kind of kid were you?
I was all sports all the time. I played everything growing up. Soccer, baseball, football, basketball, any sport I could play, I did. I loved basketball. Really, wanted to be great at it. Big part of the reason I moved to the States was to follow, my dream of becoming a great basketball player. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Fell short of becoming some great basketball player. But along the process, I got to play high school ball, get recruited. Ended up playing junior college basketball because I wanted to get re-recruited to a higher level. Turns out I was still a Division II basketball player, and I ended up signing to play with Raleigh Massimino down in Florida, and that was the first step in me kind of becoming a coach. Got to play for him for 2 years, learned so much from him, and kind of made that decision to go there to play for him because I knew what he could do for me one day as a coach, and he really set me up kind of on the path I'm on now, I guess. But yeah, I was definitely a sports kid. Always sports. Didn't really love school that much, like a lot of student athletes, but I did well. Made sure I passed so I could keep playing sports.
Okay, talk about that real quickly. Now, you said you went to a JC. Now, which JC was that? And then how did you end up with Raleigh? Now, how did that exactly how that happened?
So I in high school I had some Division II offers, and I really thought I was good enough to play Division I, so I went to Southeast Community College. It's in Lincoln, Nebraska. Coach Joel Wooten there. You know, Great opportunity to come in and play. They had a role open that I thought I could fill. I got to start for him for a couple of years, which was terrific. During my sophomore year, I was kind of just getting recruited by the same schools again in that Midwest Division II kind of level. And Dennis Hobson, actually, who you know well,
Hop, yes, we do.
yeah, he called me and started to recruit me. He saw me at some JUCO event and explained to me about Raleigh. I didn't know a ton about him other than beating Patrick Ewing and the Georgetown Hoyas. He was the coach. I knew that, but didn't know much else. He kind of talked to me about what he might do for me one day if I knew I wanted to coach after I got done playing, and we really sold that, and I had a great relationship with Coach Hobson, Dennis as well. So yeah, just the relationship I had with those two, and it was in West Palm Beach, Florida. If I'm being 100% honest, it was tough to pass that up as well after living in Lincoln, Nebraska for a couple of years. So yeah, I just a great relationship with Hop, Coach Mass, and on my visit, I just knew that's where I wanted to be for the next couple of years.
Now that's interesting. So talk about, as you know, we know Hop well, but talked about what you learned from Coach Massimino's style. And you knew then you wanted to coach. So how did that happen?
I I loved basketball. I studied it. I was a student of the game. I never could see myself not being involved with basketball. So I didn't want to get into coaching right away. I plan to keep playing, not because I'm some great player, but because I have an Australian passport. I would have been able to go back to Australia and continue to play. I ended up having back surgery my senior year. I had a couple of herniated discs that, I could have rehabbed for 12 months and got back to playing shape, I think. But Coach Mass just, kind of said, what are you doing? How great of a career are you going to have over there playing? He's like, you need to start coaching. And so I said, I don't even have, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go coach? And he said, you're going to go work for Jay Wright. And I said, well, coach, what? Like, how? He's not going to hire me. I'm not even done with college yet. And he actually, funny story, called Jay Wright on his phone and put him on speaker. And he said, Jay, I got this kid. You got to hire him. And Coach Wright, what are you talking about, Coach Massimo? He goes, you're going to hire him. He's great. You'll love him. And Coach Wright basically said, I don't have a job open. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'd love to, but I can't. And he goes, you're going to hire him, and hung up the phone. And he looked at me and said, congratulations, you got a job. I said, Coach, it didn't sound like I have a job. But no, that's Coach Mass. He was the godfather, man. Rest in peace. He was really, really tough on us as players, but you knew how much he loved you and would take care of you. Like, you never questioned that he had your back and would, always take care of you. He used to always say, we'll do a lot more for you in your lifetimes that you guys are going to do for us. Trust me on that. And he's told the truth, because I wouldn't, be an assistant coach at the University of San Francisco if it wasn't for him getting me started.
So you did end up with go to Villanova, which is interesting.
Yep. That's the Godfather's work right there. He made it happen.
So, and I think you were there for what, 10 years? You were there for a good while.
That was my next stop, actually. I was at Villanova for 2.5 years, 3 years, 2 or 3 years with Coach Wright, and learned a ton under Coach Wright. He was terrific.
So tell me real quick, what was the difference between Coach Mass and Coach Wright?
A lot of similarities. In some ways. Coach Wright was an assistant for Raleigh for a lot of years at Villanova and then at UNLV as well. They had similarities in their style of coaching. They were really tough on their guys, but loved them. And the guys knew that. Amazing culture guys. The culture came first. There was a line you had to toe, and if you did that, there'd never be any problems. But you don't step outside of those lines. That's the expectations for them, and the guys kept to it. I think Coach Wright kept things a little bit simpler. Not to get too in depth from offense and defensive standpoints. He didn't want his players thinking too much. Having to remember X's and O's and coverages. And his big thing was, I just want you guys playing with maximum effort and together and really smart. I don't want you having to think about where am I supposed to be, what play am I running. It was more so just the effort level had to be incredible. But a lot of similarities. Jay Wright was a disciple of Raleigh, so yeah, very similar in a lot of ways.
So you spent a good 2 years with them, and then after that, you made a move. Now, why did that happen?
Well, Larry Brown, who had just got done working with the Charlotte Bobcats at the time, still owned his house in Philadelphia from his days with the Sixers, coaching Allen Iverson and that crew. he started coming to every single practice. He would literally be at practice like 3 hours early, sitting there like waiting for guys to start showing up. And I was, a young coach there, and I was on the floor early with guys shooting and helping them get ready for practice. And I just kind of started picking his brain and spending time with him where I could, and just good fortune that he offered me he got the SMU job in Dallas, Texas. And when he made the move, he said, basically, I don't know what job I have for you, but I'd love for you to come with me, basically, if you want to come down to Dallas. And, when Larry Brown, he's a Hall of Fame coach, offered me that, it wasn't about the job title or money or anything like that. It was okay. I packed up my beat up Chevy Tahoe and drove to Dallas and started my next leg of my coaching career.
So talk about what you learned from Coach Brown.
He was amazing. He's a Hall of Fame coach for a reason. I think all three of those guys, incredible. Whatever they stood for, they didn't budge on those things. Like their key, whatever it may be between the three of them, there was no pushing them on that. They'd have leeway in other areas, but they were so, locked in on what was important to them. Coach Brown, coming from the Carolina tree, still had a ton of similarities from Coach Mass and Coach Wright. The effort level had to be incredible. He used to always tell, I'm not going to coach you on effort. That's expected. I'm here to coach you guys on execution. And so without effort, you weren't going to touch the floor for Coach Brown. And his biggest thing was, honestly, to me, was just unselfishness. He would call you out for a selfish shot. He would make, he'd make it recognized if you didn't make the one more to an open teammate, if you didn't sprint to help your buddies up off the floor, things like that. He created teams that were so together. And you saw that in his Detroit Piston teams and 76er teams. They were just so tight and always, played for each other. His slogan, he probably should have trademarked a long time ago, play the right way. It just rings true. He made his teams play the way you're supposed to play. There was never selfishness. There was never bad shots. There was, because you would get benched or he would hit the whistle and would you want to play with the guy that takes a shot like that? And he'd make it known, like he'd embarrass you if you weren't careful taking bad ones. But yeah, I guess that's what I'd say about Coach Brown, just the togetherness of his teams.
Talk about your best season at SMU. And you guys had some really talented guys there. Yeah,
I was fortunate enough to coach 4 different guys that played in the NBA there at SMU. And then I think almost every single player we recruited there went on to play in Europe if they didn't make it to the NBA. We had some incredible talents and some incredible seasons. Under Coach Brown, we got to the NCAA tournament, lost to UCLA on a 1-point buzzer beater. Controversial goaltending call, but I'm not going to get into that. And Coach Brown really kind of built that program from the basement. They hadn't seen a postseason tournament in 30 years, so I got to be a part of someone building from the ground up. They had some really very similar to USF, had some amazing history, but there'd been a little bit of a lull and trying to build it back up to where it was supposed to be. And I got to see that firsthand. Then when Tim Jankovich took over, when Larry Brown stepped down, we kept it rolling. It was we had a 30-win season, won our conference again, won the tournament again, and lost to USC by 1 point in the tournament that year as well. So the Pac-12 by 1 point, 2 points total sent me home. But amazing years at SMU to be a coach and to be somewhere for 10 years is unheard of. So we're very fortunate. I have family in Dallas. My first daughter was born in Dallas. yeah, I loved my time there. And then, next chapter brought me here. I've been extremely fortunate.
I'll probably leave that for Chris, but talk about being in San Francisco, because you've had a nice whirlwind and of East and West, but now you're on the West Coast. So talk about uh, San Francisco, USF, and the expectations that are here.
Yeah, so I when Chris got the job, he called me and asked if I'd be interested, and I've almost worked with Chris a couple of times, and so I've always had a huge amount of respect for him as a coach. I would call him a lot to pick his brain, and we'd catch up. Not a ton. I'd be lying if we spoke all the time, but we always stayed in really good communication and talked ball or recruiting or whatever it may be. Almost worked with him at Hartford. Almost worked with him at San Diego.
Almost.
So, almost. My family kept me in Dallas. They wouldn't let me leave. But when he offered me the job in San Francisco, West Coast Conference, it was too good to pass up. San Francisco, obviously an amazing city. California, amazing state. And then the opportunity to keep building on what they've done over the last few years is it's kind of what I got to do at SMU and really hope to do here. They getting back to the NCAA tournament in an at-large bid is an amazing feat. And people think it's easy to get there. It's not. There's 30 teams that get the automatic selection from winning a conference tournament, and there's all these great ACC, Big Ten, whatever, Big 12 schools that get at-large bids. So to be pulling at-large bids, multiple at-large bids in the conference means it's a heck of a conference. And the West Coast Conference, has been a multi-bid league for years now. So hoping to continue to do exactly what, CG and Coach Golden and the staff has been doing here, which is keeping that bar really high and keep building on that. That's absolutely the plan.
I'll talk about your family a little bit. You guys all settled in? You got a place to live?
Yes, we do. We live about 10 minutes from school. My wife is a saint. She was 5 months pregnant, I think, when I told her we were moving to San Francisco, or asked her if it'd be okay if we moved to San Francisco, I should say. And she graciously said, okay, we can do that whilst 5 months pregnant. So we had one daughter born in Dallas, and my second daughter was born here in San Francisco. And yeah, it was it was a wild time, kind of going back and forth from Dallas and packing up a house with already having a 1-year-old and a 5-month pregnant wife. But we managed, we did it. We're very settled in here. My eldest daughter has a daycare center she loves. My wife is able to work from home, which is terrific. And yeah, we're settling in. So much to do in San Francisco. I haven't had a chance to. I've been to the beach. I've been to Golden Gate Park. I've done a couple of those things, but moving and then hitting season time, I haven't had a chance to really enjoy the city. But I know at some point I will.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for being on. Obviously, I'm really looking forward to the season. I think you guys got a great staff. I think you got talent, man, on this team. So this year, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously my first year here, I wasn't with last year's team, but I've been on some really good teams. Fortunate enough to coach on some really, really good teams, and we have the pieces, I believe, to be a great team. Obviously, we've got to do our jobs and put them in the right place, but I think talent level is definitely here. You've done a great job. Done a great job recruiting the right guys. So I am pumped up for the season. Can't wait to get rolling.
Awesome. Jay, thank you so much.
Of course, anytime. It's great talking with you.